Hey guys! My name is Melissa Zarodnicek, and today I'm going to share with you my December daily album, or rather albums because they got a little big. So I decided to just go ahead and leave my album covers blank. I had a lot of ideas for it, but ultimately I think for the sake of storage and my own sanity, these guys are going to remain as is. 2015 was actually my first year ever doing December Daily, and I loved the project, probably most of all because it's the first scrapbook that I actually finished, which is a great thing for me. I can be a little notorious for starting a lot of projects and not always finishing them, so I'm really excited to share these with you. I'm also going to include pictures in the blog post, so if you have questions about products or techniques, or if anybody would like tutorials on how I made some of the things, please let me know in the comments, and I'll try and do my best to get around to those when I have a chance. So without further ado, here is my 2015 December Daily album. For my cover page, I just started off with a transparency. Has some stripes. I believe this was a We Are Memory Keepers one, and I think this guy is still available last I checked. I used Ali Edwards' December Daily main kit for both the numbers and the December Daily word banner there, and just glued those on with my adhesive runner. And then underneath that I have the page that has my reason why, my intentions, those kind of things. For me, I just explained why it is I love Christmas so much. I kind of notoriously adore this holiday season, and so I wanted to include some of the reasons why it's so special to me. And then I just added some washi tape along the top of that one. I also, in the front, wanted to include a picture of our little ragtag family. This is me, my best friend, and my boyfriend, and we are super close, do all of the things together, so to me this is family, and I wanted to make sure that I had a picture of us included in the very beginning of the album because it's really our story. This is also the paper from the main kit that I just loved and wanted to make sure was kind of front and center for setting the tone of the album. My first story is a story about the advent calendars that we made. My boyfriend Mike and I made each other advent calendars at the very end of November and then started opening them December 1st, obviously, so that was really fun. So I included a big photo of the one that I made for Mike, and the whole front side is kind of his story. And then the back side is the one that he made for me and I took to work, which was really fun. Then on the other side is my day 2. This was a story about how I decided to make a lot of my mom's Christmas gifts this year. She had requested some scarves that I had made her in the past, and then as I was out shopping I just didn't really find much for her, so I decided to make things instead. So I made her an apron, I made her some Christmas wall art, and then underneath this little page I made a flip up to include the journaling about that because I just liked the way that this looked cohesively together. And I hand stitched on some trim to make the number 2 on this Heidi swap card. That story continues onto the back side. So this is the same story of day 2, talking about when I made the scarves, and that kind of ends here. This is my divider page. It's one of the clear transparencies from the main kit, and underneath it I included a photo from when we were out Christmas tree shopping, which is actually the story for the next day, so it's kind of a fun lead-in to that. It's just a picture of some rain with the Christmas trees behind, and then city lights and things like that. So day 3, like I said, is the story of us getting our Christmas tree. I live in Seattle, and it is always rainy here during the holiday time. So it was a really soggy night, as you can tell from the pictures, which I kind of love now in retrospect, just remembering that we were running around in a downpour determined to find the most beautiful tree. And we found some reindeer at one of the tree hunting locations, so I included them because they were just such a fun thing to stumble upon. I have a picture of the car with the tree on top, and then one of my favorite things is that I included a little shaker pocket of pine needles from our actual tree. So I just scooped these guys off the floor after we brought the tree inside, and then let them dry out for a couple of days. And I filled up the pocket and then fused the top closed. with my fuse tool. And then day 4 obviously includes those pine needles again, but I love the way it looks in this spread. I have a few favorite spreads throughout my books, but this is definitely one of them. We host a monthly game night at our home once a month, and so December 4th was when that happened. So I left it pretty simple as far as journaling and things like that. I just wrote down the games we played, and then because I didn't have like a single photo that I loved from the night, I decided to include a few of them, and I wanted to do that in kind of a unique way. So I had this popcorn bag that I thought was really fun, and I made an insert for it and then printed off some photos on my Instax printer that I could include in that. So they all just flip up. It's just simply washi across the top. I made sure to print these upside down in my Instax printer so that I could use that extra top space to tape them on. And then they just kind of create this cascading waterfall page, which is really fun. I love interactive pieces like this in any albums because I feel like we almost make them too precious sometimes and nobody wants to really enjoy and play with things. So I love having things that you can play with. The next page is again just a divider to kind of separate day 4 from day 5, and it starts telling the story of dashing through the snow, which is what we did in day 5. This was probably my favorite transparency from the main kit that year. It has the branches and the snow, and then I used these beautiful letters on top. I'm pretty sure these are Dear Lizzie thickers that have kind of a newspaper print on the background and then almost a snow feel on top of that in a mint green. So day 5 is the story of us going to Leavenworth, Washington. If anybody knows the area up here, you know that Leavenworth is a really fun Bavarian-themed town, and I knew that this year I really needed to see some snow, so I was super excited to go to Leavenworth, which is up in the mountains, and get my fill of Christmas town and of snow, and that's definitely what we got. It was awesome. We almost didn't make it home on the way back because we got a little too much snow, but it was definitely worth it and a super fun time. So we just took a quick day trip up there with some friends, and that's what these are all the story of. Visiting the Nutcracker Museum that's there, seeing horse-drawn carriages in the snow, and this is just, the whole town is like this adorable Bavarian theme. That night we went to the big tree lighting ceremony, which was really fun. We ate chestnuts and hung out by a fire. It was just a really good, very holiday themed time, which I loved. And that ends the story of Leavenworth there, and then day 6 we switch over to the beginning of my Hanukkah story. So no one in our family is actually Jewish, but my roommate and I, who's been my best friend for years, we've always really loved the Jewish culture and history and stories, and have always wanted to celebrate Hanukkah. So one year we just decided, why not? So we celebrate Hanukkah every year together, and it's just a really fun thing for us to do together. We kind of try and learn a little bit more about it every year and then bring our own bench to it, I guess. We have Hanukkah themes that we choose for gifts every year, some of which are a little sacrilegious, but it's still always a really fun time for us to get to choose gifts kind of specifically for each other and do it in such a fun, different way while kind of learning along the way. So I'll have a few Hanukkah spreads, but this is the first one with our table set up. We got to make a little section this year of our home that was dedicated to Hanukkah, which was really fun. And then day 7 is actually one of my favorite spreads, which is kind of ironic because it's maybe the simplest one I did. I chose on this day to just focus on things that I'm thankful for this season and listed 7 different ones. These are just printed out on some paper, and then I put the foam squares behind them to give them a little bit of dimension. And then I used the front side of this divider for my number 7, just to kind of tie it in, but also as a divider between day 7 and day 8, which is on the next page here. So the back side is obviously day 8, and I used one of the tags from the main kit, which I found was the perfect size to put another Instax photo on the back of, which I really love. We have a tradition of going to this concert called Deck the Hall Ball every year, And we always end up taking an Instax picture, usually of our crazy sweaters. This year we got too warm, so it was sans sweaters at the time, but it's always a really fun time, and just kind of one of those traditions we look forward to in our non-traditional rock and roll family here. So I used the tag for the number. For the photo, it has a little tassel and then some words attached, and then behind that I just took a screenshot of my e-ticket on my phone to kind of act as my ticket in the pocket there. And then on the other side, I just included some fun things, like we always wear crazy sweaters, so we have a picture of our sweaters, a little sweater sticker, the lineup for the show that night, and then there are just various pictures from the performers who were at the show. It was a really fun time. Got to see a lot of great bands and enjoy just being together, which was awesome. It's an all-day concert, so you get a lot of music and a lot of togetherness. So that is Deck the Hall Ball, which was day 8, and then moving on to day 9, I found this printable, I think on Bandeau's website this year, that was designed by an illustrator I really love, and so I just printed that out. It says Christmas songs that don't suck, and it's just a list of awesome Christmas music, which I really loved. I like the story of this, I think mostly because knowing that it came from a company that I really love and from an illustrator that I really love speaks to me, and then it just has a great Christmas theme to it. And then the next page starts our story of going to the Nutcracker, so I made another little pocket page. As you will find out, I love doing these. I just like having ways to include things that don't fit other places, or to include little paraphernalia. I used this adorable postcard as my journaling for the Nutcracker, so I used the backside to talk about how beautiful it was. This year, the Pacific Northwest Ballet used a new designer for their Nutcracker, and it blew me away. It was one of the most visually stunning things I've ever seen. If you're in the Seattle area, absolutely go see the Ian Falconer Nutcracker. It will blow you away. So I wrote a little story about that. Alright, and on the back side of that pocket I have a picture of Lori and I going to the ballet, all dressed up. And then on the other side here, this is actually one of the illustrations that Ian Falconer drew when he was kind of conceptualizing what the ballet was going to look like now. And I just really love the image. I love his style, and I especially love getting to see this kind of come from conception into reality right in front of me on the stage. It was such a beautiful show. On the back side, I used one of my favorite papers from the main kit and just made a frame. The picture is actually behind it, and then I mitered the corners and laid down some washi tape just to give it kind of a feel of like a finished picture frame there. And then the Nutcracker on top is actually, I believe, a gift tag from IKEA last year. And then I just have a couple more things on the other side. I used one of the pictures from the Pacific Northwest Ballet advertising because obviously you can't take photos during the performance, but I wanted to have a little bit more of that feel. So I have little pictures that I took up here, and then included a couple from the performance that were available to the public. And that is the story of the Nutcracker. So next up is the story of our Hanukkah celebration. We had a big Hanukkah feast this year and wanted to really celebrate some of the traditional foods of Hanukkah. So we made some homemade latkes and noodle kugel and got challah bread and delicious things like that, and just had a night to celebrate all together. Lori read Herschel and the Hanukkah Goblins to us, which is one of her family traditions from her childhood that I really love. And on this page I included another full-size shaker pocket, which is really fun. Has a few different sizes and types of confetti in there to kind of keep it interesting. On the back side, I told the story of Mike signing Lori and I up for Cards Against Humanity, 8 sensible gifts of Hanukkah that they did this year. They sent you 8 different things in the mail that were supposed to be sensible gifts, and they included letters from their fathers with advice and fun things like that. It was really hysterical and a lot of fun. And then I had Lori and I both fill out just this little 4x6 journaling card. I wrote down on the front side just what Hanukkah means to me, why we love it so much, what's so fun about it, and had Lori do the same thing on the back side. just to include kind of both of our voices in that. I have a big picture of our menorah on the end there with all 8, or I guess 9 candles lit to close out that story, and then that actually finishes up the first album. So I just used a simple paper on the back that I really loved. All I added was this little deer embellishment, and that is it. I considered doing kind of a switch between page explaining, you know, that this is the end of album 1, you're going on to album 2, but ultimately I think I can figure it out. I'll remember that this is the end of that one. So that is that, and on to the next album. So the second album starts off with this little Christmas card holder that I made. This is really one of my favorite projects I included in here, and it was a good combination of just some inspiration that I had and some items that I knew I wanted to use. So Lori actually brought home this bag from Starbucks for me, and I love the pattern on it and knew I wanted to include it somehow, but I got almost completely finished with my album and realized that I still hadn't found a use for it. But I knew I wanted to include my Christmas cards in the album. So I decided to turn it into a little envelope page, which is what I did. So inside of this are all of the Christmas cards I wanted to save from this year. I had to pare them down a little bit just so that they would all fit, because mercifully they were about the same height as the bag was wide, but because it's such a tight fit in there, I couldn't fit as many as I had. So I pared them down to just the ones that were more important to me, like some handmade ones that actually had written messages to us, as opposed to just, you know, like a signature at the bottom or just a generic card. And this is one of the things that I could definitely do a tutorial on. But the basic version is just, this is the front side of the bag, this is the back side. I cut out the bottom that would be inside of here, and then adhered the sides together. I used a little bit of the bottom structure of the bag just to create a kind of internal pocket there so that the cards could slide into it and not get stuck on the adhesive that's on the outside here. And I used the little handles for the bag as the loops on the side, just because I wanted it to stick out a little bit further in the page rather than having to hole punch it in there. But I really love how this turned out. I added a little bit of trim, I added the sticker just so I remembered what was inside of there. And again, I think to encourage people to kind of play around with being able to pull these out and read them again in the future. But aside from that, that is pretty much all that guy is. If anybody's interested in knowing how to do this, let me know and I could do another little tutorial maybe for this year about how to make these. I left the back side of that blank just because I liked how this sat on top of there. And then day 12 is the story of us decorating our Christmas tree. So I knew I wanted to have some of this fun chunkier confetti in the album somewhere, and this seemed like a perfect opportunity for it. It has little Christmas trees, some stars, all sorts of things in the mix there, and then I just added on top of the picture of our naked Christmas tree before we decorated it, "How lovely are your branches." I really love using like quotes and song lyrics as journaling and things like that. And I had a lot of visions for this setup. What it turned out was a little different from what I pictured, but I still really like the end result here. I knew I wanted it sparkly. I knew I wanted to include this kind of circular idea so that I can include more photos and more elements all together rather than just having square pictures in a pocket page. So I chose to put the tree without any ornaments next to a page of the ornaments and what we were going to decorate with, and then on the back side I made sure to take a picture of each one of us putting an ornament on the tree, which I really love. I think it's fun to kind of give it a little bit of movement and life instead of just having stagnant pictures of the Christmas tree. But I do have one of it all decorated in the end, and I think it's fun just to kind of show almost like a step-by-step process in a little different way. So that was day 12. Day 13 is the story of us receiving the boxes of gifts that my parents sent. I asked my mom this year to write me a little 6x8 note that I could include, and I gave her a couple of prompts, but ultimately she sent back a note that was really personal and really lovely, and I love the sentiment she included there. So I put that next to just the pictures I had of us receiving and unboxing all of their gifts, because that's always like Christmas morning on its own. We don't unwrap the gifts themselves, but just getting to take them out and see everything so fun and wrapped up and ready for us is always such a delight. And then on day 14, I told the story of the weather. I really was pining for some snow this year. I'm originally from Montana, which is where my family still lives. And so I decided to include a little side-by-side of the weather in my hometown and then the weather where I live currently. But I wanted to add some more texture and dimension and things to this page, so I made another flip up and put the picture of the weather where I currently live, as well as the journaling I had about this underneath this little flip up, and then made kind of a snowy scene just out of some white cardstock and clear glitter on top of that to kind of set the tone for what the story was about. These are actually Heidi Swap letters that are the kind you can foil yourself, and instead of using the foil on top of the adhesive, I just used the same glitter that I used in the pocket there to make some snowy looking letters. And then next to that, as part of day 15, I have another little pocket page I made, and then this Studio Calico card that talks about gift lists. So I put my family's all on one side, I put Lori and Mike's on the other side, and just told some of my favorite gifts that I gave this year, the bigger ones to each person, which I thought would be fun to remember in the future. And it just lives in this little pocket. And then on the back side of that, I have a 3x4 photo of some of the gifts that I wrapped and sent to my family. These were for my sister's family. I have a sister and 2 nieces and a brother-in-law, and so this is all about the joy of getting to give gifts, especially to them and to my family as a whole. It really is the best part of Christmas, is getting to find the perfect thing for the people that you love, and just the joy of getting to bless people in that way has always been so much a part of my life, and such a fun experience for me. So this is just the story of giving. On the next page, I told the story of our neighbors and the twinkle lights that they put up every year. I live in an apartment building in the city, and this is always the most welcoming sight I see in Christmas time, because our neighbors have always decorated their balcony like this. And it's a little garish and a little over the top, and I adore it for that, because it's just so much fun to see. Especially in what's supposed to be, I think, a classier part of town. It's just like over the top holiday spirit that I appreciate. The number 16 on this page was inspired by a Pinterest project that I came across, I think a couple years ago even, where somebody had made cake topper numbers out of hot glue and some confetti. So I knew that would be a fun project to include in December Daily at some point. I feel like it was a really fun complement to the bright, crazy Christmas lights there, so I decided to use it on this day. And this was definitely a little bit of a learning curve to figure out what temperature the glue needed to be and how quickly you had to work. But it came out really fun. It has a lot of dimension to it, a lot of sparkle. Unfortunately, a little bit of it's coming off, but I decided to just deal with the imperfections of that because I think it's still really fun as is. And then the next page is actually part of a box from a new set of lights that we bought this year. This is just the front side of the box. I cut it off where the little window appeared on there, and then just cut it down to 8 inches so that it would fit in as a page on its own. And I really loved how this looked on its own, so I just added a tab, added the 17 down there. And then on the back side, I just attached some white cardstock. I did my journaling on top of that, and then I drew on the lights around the border, which I think was a really fun touch. And then on the next page was the story of going to see the new Star Wars movie. We are huge nerds in our family. We actually host an annual Star Wars party, so this was really exciting. So we were front and center at one of the opening shows with all of our friends, and had one of the waitresses at the theater take a picture of us, which I really loved, and then had some terrible selfies because the pictures in the theater were obviously not the greatest. Since it was so dark in there, I decided to switch over to black and white because you have more ability to play with contrast and brightness when you don't have to worry about oversaturating or undersaturating your colors. So just a quick tip from the photography school dropout that that's a good way, if you have low lighting photos, to switch them over to black and white, because you can make them a little more contrasty that way. And then the next page is our annual Christmas party. We have a pajama party every year at our home, and I really love the pictures in this one. This is one of my dear friends, and this picture is one of my favorites that I took in all of 2015. It's so much her spirit and so much just the fun that happens in our home, and I really love it for that. I just added in this little 4x6 page actually because I wanted to include this photo and didn't have a great spot for it. I knew it wouldn't blow up well to a 4x6 just because of the quality of the photo, so I left it as a 3x4 and just attached it on the back, and it made a really great spot to make kind of a cover page for what the story was about. I just have a few different pictures from what we did that day. There was a lot of crafting. We had a hot cocoa bar. We always watch movies and make a little fort in our living room for that, with air mattresses and pillows and things, and just hang out all day. So it was fun for that. We also this year decided to do a white elephant gift exchange, and I totally lucked out on getting the best gift. It was an elf-themed white elephant gift, so it's the spaghetti that he makes for the family, which is hilarious and like the best gift I've ever received, I think. And that is the story of our Christmas party. The next page for day 20 is all about the ridiculous phone game Neko Atsume, which is a cat game. We're all over-the-top cat lovers in our house, and we all got hooked on this game this year and ended up playing it all the time in December, so I knew I had to include that somewhere. So it's just a little write-up about that, which I think will be really funny to look back on in the future and remember that that was the thing we were doing at the time. I had this little page and I didn't actually have a spot to include it. I knew it was something I wanted to add in, so I just dropped it between these two pages. It doesn't have a number, but it's just the story of some of my favorite ornaments. So I did little 2x2s and then did the 2x2 cards kind of inspired by Allie's design that she did very similar to this. I just have a front and back side with some of my favorite decorations from around our home. And then day 21 was all about getting sick, which is not glamorous, obviously, but is oftentimes a part of the holidays for me because I'm not always good about knowing when to slow down. So I think it was a good reminder, and I included it as a reminder for that sometimes you just have to let life happen and accept those days when all you can do is drink some water and hope to not die. And then the next day is about receiving the coloring pages that my nieces sent just in time for Christmas. This one actually matched this new advent calendar that I got perfectly, which was hilarious because they had never seen this, but it's like an exact color match there, which I loved. And then I knew I wanted to include a little bit of journaling just so I could remember what this was about, but I didn't have a great spot, so I actually used my tag just for some quick flip-up journaling there. I just washi taped it onto the top so you can flip it back and forth, and left it pretty simple on that page. And then I have a divider to kind of separate the brunt of the actual Christmas holidays here on the side. I used, again, one of the dividers from the main kit, some of the letters, and just like that it kind of signifies the beginning of Christmas itself, even though it's on the 23rd. It was kind of when we really sank into celebrating the holidays. So behind that I did a 2x2 page using scraps of all of my wrapping paper. I just used cutoffs of the things that I was wrapping because I actually waited until the 23rd to wrap my gifts, which was a terrible idea, and this will forever remain as a good reminder that I should not wait until the 23rd to wrap everyone's gifts. But I love how this page turned out. This is very much my holiday style, and I think I loved how our gifts looked more than ever before because they were so cute and cohesive in all of these wrapping papers. This page is a 6x8 photo of just the sheer chaos of my living room as I was wrapping gifts at the last minute. And I put "Oh, what fun" over top as like the hilarious irony there of it just looking like a Christmas bomb exploded. And then on the other page I included a couple other photos, like of the book that I was reading during December, of some of our cozy blankets, just to contrast that idea of like chaos and calm. I included two pictures of some of my favorite gift wrap looks from the year. I really love wrapping gifts, and I like the inspiration of just looking at beautiful packages, so I included some of those along with a picture of our Christmas tree, both decorated and with all of our gifts underneath it, the overwhelming number of gifts that we were blessed with this year. And that is all of day 23, and then it could go into Christmas Eve. So my family has a tradition of doing appetizer-y kind of things for Christmas dinner, and luckily my cohorts out here have accepted all of my weird Christmas Eve traditions. So we always have to eat like an assortment of snacks and watch a Claymation Christmas. My family watched that every year when I was growing up on an amazing VHS recording that had like a 90s 7-Up commercial and a little snippet of Eureka's Castle holiday special, and it was the best. Unfortunately, these do not include the commercials, which is disappointing, but my parents found a DVD for my sister and I both, so we get to carry on that tradition in our families, which is really fun. And then Christmas Eve night, we actually went out and looked at Christmas lights in the city, which was really fun. We found some really good locations for Christmas lights this year, which is good because I've always been a little disappointed by the lack of Christmas lights in Seattle. So we found some fun different neighborhoods to go through, and a couple of them were really over the top, which I loved. They were like very themed and super decorated, and it was a great time. We took hot cocoa along with us and just listened to Christmas music and hung out and enjoyed some lights. And then one of Lori's family traditions is that they always read the night before Christmas, and more specifically this exact version of it. So every year she reads to us right before we go to bed from the night before Christmas. And then Christmas morning happened. So this is just a little story about our breakfast, which for us is always kind of funny because there are conflicting breakfast needs for Christmas morning, so we have to make multiple breakfasts for us all to share, which is really endearing to me. I love that we all need to carry on the traditions of our childhood that way, so it's fun to make different ones for everyone. And then on the back side of this little 25 page, I included a couple of the gift tags that my mom sent because there were some cute messages on the back, so I just stapled them on with the little tiny attacher at the top so I could see what was on the back of those. And then this was actually one of my favorite pages in the album. I knew I wanted to include a variety of photos of us all opening up our gifts on the day, but again, I didn't want it to kind of go on forever, so I just cut everything down to 2x2 pictures, and did one side with all of Lori opening her gifts, one side of Mike opening his gifts, and then in order to kind of make it cohesive and tie it together, I did this white and gold color scheme with just a little bit of red, and I really love the way this turned out. I think the fact that there's almost a monotone color scheme with, you know, cohesive shapes, but like a variety of them really balances it out well. I like how that turned out. And then I included a piece of the wrapping paper my parents sent me. I, again, love cats, love gray cats, so they managed to find like the most amazing wrapping paper for me, and I had to include a piece of that. On the back side, I told the story of the pickle gift. This year we had a friend who helped us decorate our Christmas tree, and she volunteered not only to hide the pickle for us to find on Christmas morning, but also volunteered to get a gift for the winner, which she did. She was living in a mansion at the time that she was helping to clean out for some elderly friends of hers, and so she found an amazing gift of a troll doll collection in that house that she was able to give us as the pickle gift, and Lori won that. I am still insanely jealous almost a year later, but that was a really fun time. And then in order to end the album, I knew I kind of wanted to wrap it up, but I didn't know how, so I just did a quick write-up of like our Christmas dinner, and then I included a couple photos on this side that just make me laugh like every time I see them. This is the chaos of us trying to clean up after Christmas, all of the boxes and the paper and the mess. And then this was us trying to take a group photo and failing miserably. And the photo makes me laugh every time. It's maybe like the worst picture of me in existence, but it's so funny, and I think has so much spirit to it that I love that I included it because it cracks me up still to this day. And then on the very back page, I just ended with a couple of my favorite pictures. This is my two beautiful nieces, and I sent them these little holiday Santa beard lollipops this year. My sister sent me back this picture that is so wonderful. I think it's the cutest picture of them and just really brings joy to my heart. And then on the back here I have a little excerpt that I found online that I really loved. The sentiment of it is just kind of explaining what Christmas means to us at different stages in our life. I like the juxtaposition of it with my nieces because it starts off talking about what Christmas means to you when you're young, and then what it means to you when you have your own home and have your own family, and then when you're kind of beyond that stage. And I really love it with the theme of my album because I got to include notes from myself and pieces from my young nieces and some words from my mother, and I think it kind of really ties all of that together and just has a beautiful message. So I loved ending the year with that as kind of my final parting words. I lost my Mod Podge, so it still needs attached onto the back, but I'm just going to simply Mod Podge it onto the back and probably leave it as is. And that is the end of my album. Thanks so much for following along. Again, if you have any questions about products or techniques or anything like that, please feel free to comment on my blog post, and I'll do my best to respond and to kind of illuminate as much as possible. And I look forward to doing December Daily with everyone again this year. Thanks so much.